evening from BBC News. 19-year-old was set upon by a group of 10 men outside a restaurant in the city here yesterday while having drink with a foreign woman he befriended on social media. The teen suffered injuries to his face, head and body from the pre-dawn attack. Johor Bahru South Police Chief Assistant Commissioner Raob Selamat told reporters today a short 30-second video of the assault has been circulating on social media. Raob said the attack was reported to have happened at 5:15 in the morning. The male teenager said he had befriended a foreign woman through social media before they met at a restaurant in the city. While having drink, the victim was approached by 4 men who questioned him on how he knew the woman. Shortly after that, several men attacked the victim. The victim then managed to flee from his attackers at the nearby area. The senior policeman said, but the teen was pursued and later beaten up by 6 men. His earlier assailant caught up and joined in. The victim had his injuries treated at the outpatient unit at the Sultanah Aminah Hospital here. Police are investigating the case under Section 148 of the Penal Code of Rioting.
Okay, let's discuss the first issue. Whether a 19-year-old boy who was attacked by a group of 10 outside a restaurant has the right to take an action of battery against all of the 10 men for the injury he suffered. So as we know, battery is an intentional and direct application of force toward another person without the person's consent. So before passing a judgment, the court must consider a few elements in order to successfully show there was a battery committed by 10 males. So the onus is on the 19-year-old kid to establish the same elements, which are hostile intention, direct force, and without lawful justification. Okay, regarding the first element, whether there is any hostile touching experienced by the 19-year-old boy. In replying to the first element, as we know, the first thing first, to constitute a battery, there must be a hostile touching. If we take a look at the common law, this clearly mentioned in the court of case, Wilson and Pringle, that in a battery, there must be an intentional touching or contact of plaintiff by the defendant. We can infer from here that any touching of another body is in the absence of a lawful excuse capable of being battery and a trespass. So, I cited a Malaysian case of Ahmad Azhar bin Othman and Ruzana binti Miskun, 2021, 9 MLJ 82. The judge in this case has mentioned about 3 elements of the battery that must be proved by the plaintiff, and one of them is regarding whether the defendant has committed an act which is directly caused a physical contact with the plaintiff. Basically, in this case, the judge stated that he was satisfied if the session court has not arrived, in fact, by deciding that the 3 elements regarding the 3 battery have been proven by the plaintiff in the original action. He relied on the evidence of the medical report provided by Dr. Chan, which upon finding, it is crystal clear that the plaintiff has experienced a hostile touching or an unlawful direct contact by the defendant. Basically, in this case, the plaintiff has suffered a severe injury as well as fracture on the plaintiff's rib as a result of the 3 batteries committed by her husband, which is a defendant in this case. So thus, the defendant physically assaulted the plaintiff while the plaintiff is a wife in this case. The husband assaulted her at the in front of the maid and assaulted her at the PNB reception counter as well as at the car park. These are the 3 batteries that have been committed by the defendant. So basically, if we take a look, this behavior is considered as hostile and intentional when it involves touching or hurting another person without legal justification. By applying the law, there is no doubt where it is crystal clear there is a hostile touching committed by 10 of them, even if it was stated that at the first case, the victim, who is a 19-year-old boy in this case, was approached by 4 men who questioned him on how he knew the woman rather than all of them, which is 10 of them. It should be noted that remaining of the 4 actually involved after 6 of them attacking him, which is resulted in injuries to the victim's face, head and body. Thus, it can be said, no one can escape from being accused of committing hostile, as they were working in a group and all of them act in a similar way with the intention to cause harm towards the victim. Other than that, nothing in the law permitted such acts, thus it is unlawful for attacking another in the absence of lawful excuse similar to the cited case.
element we need to prove is whether there is a direct force toward the 19-year-old boy. Dear young Arif, the second element is that regarding a direct force, it should be noted that any physical contact with the body is sufficient to amount to a force. This means that the moment the victim has physical contact, it will amount to a force. It is not necessary for the plaintiff to suffer from physical hurts. Other than that, it doesn't matter whether the battery is inflicted directly by the body of an offender or through the medium of some weapon or instrument controlled by the action of the offender. I'm keen to cite the common law case as our reference today, the case of Tiong Pik Hyong and Wong Siu Gyu. The court found that there is a battery and gave a justification that the act of the defendant, who is out of jealousy, attacked the plaintiff, which result in injuries, is not an excuse for her action. Defendant should not take law with her own hands. The other case that we would like to cite is the case of Collins and Wilcox. It was held that the police officer was acting outside the scopes of his power as he had no power to arrest the woman on the situation, and therefore he was acting outside the scope of his duties as a police officer. By applying the law into the current scenario, it can be seen that there is a direct force by the groups of 10 men towards the 19-year-old boy. It is mentioned in the news that the teen was pursued and later beaten up by 6 other men, and his earlier assailant caught up and also joined in. In addition, a short 30-second video of the assault that had been circulating on social media also being vital evidence where the direct force was inflicted on him, where some of them even, if by throwing a chair, which is in line with the explanation I mentioned earlier that the force can be either directly or use a medium that was controlled by the offender. Referring to the cited cases in common law that the judge affirmed where the jealousy of the defendant did not justify her act being legal by attacking the plaintiff who has an affair with her husband, I can say that in this situation, the current scenario where the acts of 10 men beating a 19-year-old is unreasonable. They cannot contend that the 19-year-old boy's friendship with a foreign woman he knew on social media has inferred with one of their members' relationship. The next element that we have to prove is whether the 10 men have acted without a lawful justification. Dear young Arif, if a physical contact or touching with another person's body is not justified by the law, it's battery. But if it's justified, it's not a battery. Basically, there are some circumstances where the physical contact might be lawful. For example, lawful arrest by the police, a child who was subjected to a reasonable punishment, the use of force to self-defense, and a person who consent to the physical force. Let's take a look at some cases. In the case of Mahmud and government of Malaysia, a police cannot however use more force than is necessary to effect their arrest or capture, nor can he cause the death unless the alleged offence is one punishable with death or imprisonment for life. The court held that the plaintiff had failed to prove his allegation that he had been shot by the police officer negligently and without warning. The key point here is the police was justified as a last resort to fire the shot to effect the plaintiff's arrest and prevent from escaping. By applying the law and distinguishing the above cases, there is nothing can be said that the acts of the 10 men assault the plaintiff falls under the examples of lawful justification, namely self-defense or consent and others. It is crystal clear that the act of beating is not justified by law. Nothing in the law gave permission to a person, especially a stranger, from nowhere in the case of beating another man in the public.
Next, I want to discuss whether a 19-year-old boy is entitled for general damage of pain and suffering as well as loss of amenities. As we know, plaintiffs are able to be compensated for both the physical pain and the mental suffering caused by the injuries. He also may recover damage for loss of amenities if the evidence is proof that he has lost the enjoyment of life for not having a capacity to engage in activities which he used to enjoy before. In assessing the damage that may be recovered by the 19-year-old boy, I make a reference to the case Tiong Pik Hyong and Woo Sing Yu 1964, 1 MLJ 181. So basically in this case, the plaintiff suing to claim special and general damages for battery. So she alleged that on the 29th of August 1963, the defendant attacked her at the Central Road, Cebu. She said that the defendant struck her on her face, neck and arm, causing her pain and suffering, leaving her with a permanent injury and visible mark on her face. So it was held that in this case, the judge stated that the plaintiff is therefore entitled to damage for pain and suffering and for a temporary loss of part of the amenities of life. However, the court further explained that only a very small part of the damages should be for loss of amenities. This is owing to the fact that she suffered temporary diminishment of her good looks. Due to this reason, she is not able to engage in the activity that she used to do, which is attending dressmaking institute, because she felt ashamed to appear with an obvious scar on her face. In addition, the judge stated that the main part must be for pain and suffering. This is due to the fact that plaintiff was quite nastily scratched on the face, and she must have suffered some pain from them and swelling on the face. So moreover, the scratch on her arm and neck must also have caused her some pain. So the court considered that she also must have some mental suffering through embarrassment at her appearance and through fear that her good look were ruined. It should be highlighted that in this case, actually the doctor gave her justification by saying that the pain suffered by the plaintiff would have been minimal. But we need to take into account that doctor's standard of comparison in such matter must be different from the layman. Thus, it can be inferred even though the layman contended that the injury suffered by the plaintiff is not to the extent that is really severe to claim for damage, pain and suffering, but the evidence and justification made by the doctor really encouraged the court to reach the final decision by saying that the plaintiff is in the state of pain due to the wrongful act of the defendant. So, in the overall judgment, taking into consideration the pain and suffering undergone by the plaintiff, temporary loss followed by a temporary diminishment of her good looks and loss of amenities, the sum of 450 should be awarded as general damages. So by applying the law to the current scenario, it can be said that a 19-year-old boy can claim for general damages for pain and suffering, as well as loss of amenities. This is due to the fact that he might be in pain and suffer injury as well as risk to the unlawful attack by 10 men during that night. As the evidence goes back and take a look at the short 30-second video, which is during that time, a 19-year-old boy actually in a severe state, where the face is covered by red blood and obvious traces are detected here and there. So this is generally in line with the cited case where an act of jealous defendant causing a plaintiff pain and suffering and leaving her with a permanent injuries and visible mark on her face. So in addition, we can presume that a 19-year-old boy might have suffered a permanent injury as well as the cited case due to the fact that he was attacked by 10 men. I repeat, a 10 men. So in this situation, as a reasonable man, we can presume a harsh attack is inflicted upon him, especially the 10 men who attacked him in the state of anger. Thus, they cannot reasonably think all they know is simply beating as long as they feel satisfied. A severe and permanent injury might be suffered by a boy as he acted alone. In this situation, no one helped him when the chair and fist were thrown against him. Furthermore, in regard to the damage of loss of amenities, it can be said that 19-year-old boy can also claim for this by proving he is unable to engage in activity that he used to do before. This can be made a reference to the cited case where the plaintiff is entitled to claim the damage even though in a small sum after proving that she has to let go her enjoyment to attend the dressmaking institute after being scratched in the face, which is cause of the scar that took a longer time to disappear. So this it can be said that due to the attack by the 10 men, it can be said that a 19-year-old boy might have suffered injury that prevented him from enjoying what he used to do before. So in conclusion, I will say that a 19-year-old boy is entitled for general damages, pain and suffering, as well as loss of amenities.
The third issue on the table is whether there are any special damages for medical and other expenses that can be recoverable by the plaintiff. Special damages are the monetary losses that arose from the defendant's act, Your Honor. As established in Sam Won Hung and Dr. Kadir Ibrahim Shah, this includes out-of-pocket expenses like hospital and treatment bills, nursing care, and other related costs. Aside from medical aspect, other nourishing foods and taxi fares, all of these must be proven necessary by the court. Let us take a look at some of the cases. In Chai Yi Chong and Lu Tai, the plaintiff was injured at a mine pit and a bund collapsed on him. During that day, there were torrents of rain between 2 to 8 p.m. in the town that the mine was in. The location was reported to have flooded and the bund embankment that was there was overflowing. The defendant then told him to go fix the bund in the dark. Consequently, the bund collapsed on the plaintiff and the defendant was then held accountable for putting the plaintiff at risk of injury. He was then brought to the hospital for recovery. The plaintiff claimed for medical expenses and the court allowed it. In this case, we can infer that the plaintiff sought treatment in a government hospital and therefore the entire claim for the bills may be awarded. In the previously mentioned case of Tiong Pik Hyong and Wong Siu Gyu, the plaintiff claimed more than just medical expenses. To go to the hospital, the plaintiff had to take a taxi between going to the police station, the hospital, and back home. The court allowed her claim of the taxi fare. Furthermore, she claimed a chicken essence, which was a medicinal tonic and recovery food, and she proved that it was necessary and the court allowed this claim. Onto applying the cases. By applying the law, the boy can claim special damages for medical and other out-of-pocket expenses. The boy had suffered the injuries and was brought to Sultanah Aminah Hospital for treatment. The hospital is a government hospital located in Johor Bahru, and him being transported there by a taxi. In Chai Yi Chong, the medical expenses for a government hospital are allowed to be claimed in full. Also, applying Tiong Pik Hyong, he should be able to claim for the transportation that was used in order to get to the hospital, Your Honor. There, Your Honor, the boy also needed special foods and dietary supplements in order for him to recover swiftly. The government hospital provided the basic care that he needed, but afterwards he had to be treated at home with his convalescent foods and supplements needed to be provided by himself. The boy should be allowed the claim for medical expenses, the taxi fare, and also the special foods.
It is plain to see that the 19-year-old who was attacked by 10 men outside of a restaurant has the right to take action of battery against them, as well as recover the general as well as special damages for the injury that he suffered. That's all from us. Thank you.